My name is Travis Maddox. I'm a former FBI profiler. These days, I work for a private firm known as Red Case Files, where we analyze and archive some of the most disturbing criminal minds ever recorded. What you're about to hear is real. The voice belongs to a man who has long since passed the threshold of rehabilitation. This is not an interview. It's a confession. Uninterrupted, uncoached, and, at times, deeply unsettling. The subject's name is Harvey Vale. He is currently serving 347 years at Stillwater Correctional Facility without the possibility of parole. His crimes spanned over 5 years. 17 victims, all teenage girls, each selected because they resembled his daughter, who was killed in a hit-and-run. Harvey was a history teacher, a father, a man who constructed a second life around grief, delusion, and control, and then acted on it. This is not easy listening. It's not meant to be. But if you want to understand how far obsession can go when left unchecked, keep listening and subscribe for daily interviews. Harvey, are you willing to talk now? If yes, the stage is yours.
Yes, I'm willing to speak. I understand it's being recorded. That's fine. I've made my peace with how this ends. There's nothing left for me to bargain with or protect. Just don't interrupt me. Not unless you want me to stop. I think the beginning matters. Not because it excuses anything, but because it frames it. It gives you a window into how someone breaks, or bends, or maybe just slides. I wasn't always like this. I was born in Bridgeport, small house, cold winters. My father taught mechanical engineering at a vocational school. My mother stayed home. Church on Sundays, quiet dinners. Nothing remarkable. Except, my mother was sick. A lot. She had these migraines that would leave her in bed for days. Sometimes I wouldn't see her for a whole week. Just hear the sounds. Vomiting, whispering to herself behind the door. I learned not to knock. So I started watching people. Teachers, neighbors, kids. I watched how they walked, how they smiled, how long they made eye contact. I got good at it. Too good. It felt like a power, knowing what someone was going to say before they said it. I started cataloguing their reactions, their expressions, like little trophies in my head. When I was 11, a girl named Carla used to walk her dog down our block every afternoon. She wore a yellow jacket, had a dimple on the left side of her mouth. I watched her from the attic window for weeks. She didn't know, but I memorized her route, the timing, the way she tugged on her sleeve when nervous. I still remember that detail. Of course, I never approached her. I just watched. Because watching was safer, controlled, no risk of being exposed or hurt or misunderstood. That need for control. It followed me into adulthood. I became a history teacher because I liked patterns, timelines, structure. The way things repeated, always the same mistakes, the same wars, the same collapses. People pretending to be surprised by what they've done 1,000 times before. I liked teenagers because they were predictable, their defiance, their insecurity, their yearning to be seen. I could read them like chalkboard dust. And then Lily was born. Lily. She was the one part of my life. I went back to work too early. Everyone told me not to. But I couldn't sit in that house anymore, listening to the wind move her curtains. That's when I noticed them. The girls at school who looked like her. Not exactly, not clones, but close. Red hair, round cheeks, a softness in the eyes. It wasn't lust. Don't make that mistake. It wasn't about sex. It was about preservation. Memory. The feeling that she hadn't completely vanished. I started with drawings. Sketches in a notebook. Then photographs. From a distance, nothing invasive, but it wasn't enough. It never is. One girl in particular, her name was Julia Castor, wore the same brand of shoes Lily liked. Pink laces, scuffed toes. She had a gap between her front teeth. She bit her sleeve when she was nervous. I started walking behind her after school, just to see where she went, just to make sure she got there safely. That's what I told myself. She was 12, and she smiled at me once. Just once. I don't think she even meant to, but it felt like permission. That night I couldn't sleep. My chest ached, my head was full of static. I kept seeing Lily's face. Then Julia's. Then Lily again. That's when it started. Not the crime, not yet, but the rationalization, the rewriting of rules in your head, the way you twist a lock until it breaks and call that an opening. I told myself it would be one time. I told myself I'd return her after just a few hours, maybe drop her off somewhere safe, somewhere she'd be found. But when the moment came, I didn't follow her. I turned the wheel and drove home. But that thought, it lingered, like a hand on the back of my neck that never moved. I suppose it's funny how long I thought I could stop at the idea of it. But ideas are seeds. You water them enough, give them time and warmth. You bloom. It was 3 weeks later. Julia was absent that day, sick, I think. And I remember walking past her locker anyway, just standing there, looking at it, at the little stickers she'd placed. Unicorns, stars, some faded cartoon I didn't recognize. I stood there for almost 10 minutes, not moving, not thinking, just existing in her orbit. That was when I realized it wasn't about Julia. It was about what she represented, the flicker of something I'd lost, the part of me that Lily had held and took with her. I began keeping track of the girls who looked like her, of the ones who didn't, but had her laugh, a posture, her habits. It was all very clinical at first. Lists, maps, notes. I made sure they all had different routines, different homes. I justified it like research, like I was building something, a case, a pattern, a study. But really, I was circling, like a moth to its own flame. The first one, the first real one, her name was Claire Brimley. She was 14. She wore her hair in 2 braids, walked alone after violin practice every Thursday. Her mother worked the night shift at the hospital. I waited for her near the back of the school parking lot. I had already prepared everything. A van I bought under a different name, blankets, snacks, water. It was cold that night, November. Her breath was visible in the air. When I stepped out, she didn't run. That part part stays with me. She didn't scream, didn't fight, just froze. I told her I was a teacher, that her mother had asked me to pick her up. She nodded, got in. It was that easy, that normal. I didn't hurt her, not at first. I spoke to her, told her stories, asked about her classes. She reminded me of Lily in the way she tucked her legs under her when she sat, like a cat curling into herself. She asked when I was taking her home. I told her soon. She asked again the next day, and the next. But I couldn't. I knew that returning her would unravel everything. Her memories, her descriptions, the van, the voice, the lie. So I made a decision. It wasn't sudden. It didn't come in a flash of rage or madness. It came like dusk, slow and inevitable. She died on the 4th day, peacefully, quietly. I told myself I was sparing her the fear, the confusion, the
Same outcome, same result. By the time the 4th girl disappeared, I had routines, habits, rules. No violence, no bruises, nothing grotesque. Just silence. Just the moment between breathing in and breathing out, stretched into something permanent. People began to notice. The town, the school, whispered warnings, news reports, curfews, but I'd already perfected the act. I was a concerned teacher, the cautious neighbour, the man who brought donuts to PTA meetings and stood silently during prayer vigils. I even lit candles. I stood at a memorial for Claire Brimley and spoke to her parents. Her mother hugged me. That broke something in me. Not guilt, not shame, but a fracture, a small hairline crack in the shell I'd wrapped around myself. Still, I didn't stop. 17 girls over 5 years, each one chosen, each one catalogued, each one buried. And with each, I felt further from myself, further from grief, further from Lily. Because that's the part no one understands. This wasn't about pleasure or hate or power. It was about memory, control, an obsession with a time that no longer existed. I became a museum curator of ghosts, and my collection was almost complete. You think you're careful, until you're not. It was bound to happen eventually. 17, it's not a small number, but I didn't plan for 17. I planned for 1 and 2. Then each time it felt like a correction, a ritual. I had everything mapped. Logs, cleaning routines. I even rotated the vehicle. Different models, different plates, no patterns. I studied true crime cases, not out of fascination, but caution. But it's always the smallest things. With victim number 12, her name was Hallie Dawn, I made a mistake. Her disappearance was clean, the timing, the method, flawless. But I didn't notice the house across the street had just installed a doorbell camera. Not facing the road, but angled just enough, it caught a sliver of my van's rear panel. Nothing conclusive, nothing even noticeable at first, but it became a thread. And once threads exist, they pull. The footage was enhanced, spread online. Reddit threads, local forums, someone recognized the model, said they saw a similar van near the old Boy Scout camp months ago, the one with the disturbed earth and shallow trench. That was victim number 3. Police didn't act right away. They couldn't. His name was Devlin. Younger than me, unmarried. Looked like someone who hadn't failed at anything yet. He'd come to my classroom under the guise of asking questions, just a few things to clarify, but his eyes lingered, too long, too still. He asked about my routines, my days off, why I sometimes drove 2 hours outside town. I told him I liked hiking, nature, solitude. He smiled, nodded, wrote it down. That's when I knew he didn't have proof, but he had suspicion. And suspicion is a door waiting for a draft. So I paused. I stopped everything. For 8 months, nothing happened. No disappearances, no odd behavior, no late-night drives. I even started dating someone. Her name was Marianne. Librarian, widow. Wore perfume that smelled like cinnamon and clean wood. She didn't ask many questions. Said I had stillness in me. Called it calming. If only she knew. For a moment, I almost believed I was healed, that maybe I had outrun it, that silence meant salvation. But then, the nightmares came. Not screams, not blood, faces. Rows and rows of faces, staring. Not accusing, just empty. Like I hadn't finished something. So I chose number 18. Her name was Danielle. 15, wore headphones constantly, bit her nails down to the quick, carried an old teddy bear keychain, even though she acted older than she was. She reminded me of Lily in one way. She looked like she was trying to forget something. I followed her for a month, memorized the gaps in her schedule, her vulnerabilities, and then I hesitated. For the first time in 5 years, I couldn't do it. I sat in the van, engine running, watching her walk toward me, and I turned it off. She passed. I never saw her again. It wasn't guilt. I need you to understand that. It was something else. Fatigue, emptiness. Maybe the realization that none of this would bring Lily back. Maybe I didn't want to remember anymore. But it was too late. Devlin was already building a case, subpoenas, warrant applications. They searched my uncle's old house. They found remnants, hair, clothing, blood traces. It unraveled quickly from there. The moment I saw them walking toward my classroom, 2 officers, heads down, not making eye contact, I knew it was over. I told them I'd cooperate, that I wouldn't fight, no lawyers, no statements, just... He didn't even speak for the first few minutes, just watched me see them again. I didn't cry, I didn't shout, I nodded. When he finally asked why, I remember thinking what a small word that is for such a long story. I told him it wasn't rage, or revenge, or lust. But it wasn't even about them, really. It was about memory, control, about not letting the world take everything from me. He didn't write that down. The trial was long. Media, victim families, security everywhere. I was instructed to look remorseful, told how to sit, how to appear non-threatening. My lawyer even picked out my clothes, soft colours, no black, no red, because colour, that's what makes a monster. They read out every name, all 17. The room felt smaller with each one. One mother screamed, another fainted. A father tried to rush the bench and had to be restrained. I didn't move. I looked straight ahead, not out of defiance, but because if I met their eyes, I might have fallen apart. And I couldn't do that.
by one, they took the stand. Teachers, parents, former students. Marianne, the woman I'd dated. She cried while saying my name, said I was kind, gentle, said she didn't believe it until they showed her the photographs. She looked at me like I'd stolen her world. I wanted to tell her I never had it to begin with. The prosecution called me calculated, predatory, a wolf in a cardigan. They showed pictures of the burial sites, diagrams, DNA results. The defense tried to argue diminished capacity, loss, trauma, grief. But grief doesn't dig graves. I didn't speak in court. I never took the stand, not out of guilt, but because I didn't want them to have a voice filtered through legal strategy. I wanted this conversation, this recording, where I could speak plainly. When the sentence was read, 347 years without parole, I nodded, because of course. There's no number that makes 17 girls right. No equation that balances that kind of theft. And let's be honest, I was never going to grow old in the outside world. I'd already become a ghost long before the trial. They moved me to Stillwater, single cell, no windows, the kind of place where time doesn't pass, it just sits with you. And that's when the voices started again. Not the kind you think, no commands.
I started talking to myself. Then I started talking to her. Not Lily, to them. One at a time. Like bedtime stories, told in reverse. And that's why I agreed to this. Not for freedom, not for sympathy, but because someone should hear the truth, unedited, in my own words. Not for absolution, but for the record. The cell is 6 feet by 9. It has a cot, a toilet, a metal desk bolted into the wall. No mirror, just polished steel that shows a blur of a man I don't fully recognize. I wake at 5:17 every morning, not because I have to, but because that's the time Lily used to knock on my bedroom door. Daddy, I'm up. I don't sleep much anymore. The guards call me schoolboy. Think it's funny. I don't react. Not because it doesn't sting, it does, but because reactions are currency here. And I don't bargain anymore. My neighbours change often. One overdosed, one was transferred, one hanged himself with a strip of sheet. I heard the chair fall. Didn't call for help, didn't look. The air smells like bleach and mildew. Days blend. Lights never really go off, just dim. Meals come on a tray through a slot in the door. Always cold, always beige. Tuesdays are mashed potatoes. Fridays, mystery meat and something that used to be a fruit cup. I eat everything, not because I'm hungry, but because it keeps the routines alive, and I need my routines. I write on the desk. No paper, no pen, just my finger tracing invisible words into the metal. I write names, apologies I'll never send, memories, conversations that never happened. I speak to them, all of them. I try to recall their voices, but they've started to blend. 17 becomes a crowd. But Lily's is clear. Always. She tells me stories, sings. Sometimes I see her in dreams, standing in doorways, never speaking, just watching. There's therapy available here, group sessions. I went once. They asked us to share what we regret,
One man said he regretted not pulling the trigger faster. Another said he regretted not hiding the body better. I said nothing. Because my regret isn't about a single moment. It's that I allowed myself to become a graveyard. That I planted memories where people should have lived. They didn't like that answer. I haven't been invited back. I sometimes hear the guards whispering that something more methodical.
Not because I enjoyed what I did, I didn't. Not because I felt powerful, I didn't. It was never about power. It was about stillness. About making the world match the silence I carried after Lily died. Each girl was an echo, some louder than others. But all of them spoke a name I couldn't forget. And when they stopped, the quiet felt familiar. I don't expect forgiveness. I wouldn't give it to me either. But if someone's listening, if someone is hearing this not through a camera, not through a courtroom script, but right here, now, then maybe something of the truth still matters, even if it's told from a cage. The letters started about a month after sentencing. I didn't expect any, didn't want them. But they came anyway, filtered through the prison mailroom. Thick envelopes, small notes, typed pages, crumpled scraps. Most were from family members, anger mostly. One mother wrote, "You looked my daughter in the eyes and still chose evil." I read that one a dozen times. Not because I disagreed, but because it was the only one that felt like a sentence. Others were less poetic. "You'll rot, burn." One just said, "Monster," in red marker. No return address. I keep them all, folded in a shoebox under the cot. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself I still exist outside this cell. A few letters came from strangers, people who saw the news. Some called me a demon. Others said they understood. That word, understood, is dangerous because it suggests permission. One letter stood out. It came from a girl named Lena. She said she remembered me from the high school, that I once helped her pick up her books in the hallway. She said she never forgot how kind I was. Said she cried when she saw my face on TV. And then, she said something I haven't stopped thinking about. I'm afraid I might have been next. That line felt like a key turning inside my ribs. I didn't reply. What would I say? Yes, you probably were. I remember Lena now. Light hair, quiet voice, always sat near the window. I never followed her, but I had noticed. That's the part that haunts me most, the ones I noticed, the ones I passed over. Left them stacked in a corner until the guards made me move them. Now I keep them like evidence. My own paper graveyard. There's one more kind of letter, the kind I write and never send. They're all to Lily. I write about the weather, the food, what I dreamed. I tell her about books I remember, games we played. I pretend she's answering, that her voice comes through the paper like smoke from a blown-out candle. But she never does. She never will. The therapist once asked me if I believed Lily would forgive me. I told her Lily wouldn't need to, because Lily never saw this part of me, the monster, the planner, the man with a shovel and a list of names. She saw her father,
The one who made pancakes shaped like stars. The one who kissed skinned knees and clapped at piano recitals. The part of me that still existed. Until the world took her. It's strange, the things we hold on to. I still remember how Lily's fingers curled when she held my hand. How she said ambiance instead of ambulance. How she insisted the moon was following her home. I remember those things. Clearer than I remember the faces of the girls I buried. Is that guilt? Or just the mind protecting itself? I don't know, but I think about it every night. There was a moment I could have ended it all. For 3 years before my arrest, a girl named Jocelyn, 14, sharp voice, strong eyes. She saw me watching her outside a bookstore on Willow Street. I hadn't followed her far, just a few blocks, enough to memorize the weight of her walk, the way her backpack shifted when she turned. That she noticed me. She looked right at me, not through me, not past me, at me. And she didn't flinch. That mattered. I turned away, drove home. That night I stood in my bathroom, stared at the sink for a long time. I picked up the phone, dialed. 911. My finger hovered over the last one. I could feel my whole body vibrating, like something was trying to claw its way out of me. Something desperate to be punished. I hung up. Cowardice wears a calm face. I went to bed and told myself it was nothing, that I hadn't done anything, but I had. Intent is a knife, even if you don't draw blood. The next morning, I drove past the bookstore. She wasn't there. Never saw her again. And I told myself that meant something. That I'd shown restraint. That maybe, in some small way, I could stop. But that wasn't the end, was it? No. That was just the brief flicker before the current returned. It always came back. The thoughts, the need. Like a train circling the same loop. Forever. I tried other things, distractions. I volunteered at the library. I helped organise a school event. I even joined a grief group, the kind with folding chairs and instant coffee and people clinging to candles. They said healing took time. They said God had a plan. They said I should forgive the driver who took my daughter. But there was no driver. There was no face to hate. No name to scream. So I turned inward and downward. The need for control became hunger, and hunger became ritual. 17 girls. You know their names. I remember everyone. Not just the names, but the way their hair smelled after the rain, the sounds they made in sleep, the way they resisted, pleaded, went quiet. I know that makes your skin crawl. It should. That's the point. If you're going to listen, really listen, you have to hear it without flinching. I told myself they were being preserved, that in some perverse, fractured way, I was keeping them from the world that killed Lily. That's the lie. That's the thing that made it bearable. You asked me about remorse. We'll get there, but not yet. People like me, we don't usually get caught by brilliance. Not some genius detective, not a DNA match or a sudden flash of insight. It was a smell. A neighbour, 2 doors down from the Stillwater house, called about a smell. Said it reminded her of rotting meat and mildew. Claimed it came through the vents when the wind shifted.
I was already pulling away by then, losing rhythm, losing control. My last girl, her name was Abigail, 15. She was the only one who tried to run, and the only one who almost made it. She knocked the door open, got halfway down the street before I tackled her. No one saw, or maybe they did, and decided not to get involved. I kept her longer than the others, maybe because I knew it was the end, maybe because part of me wanted it to be. I stayed with her after she died. Sat in the room for 3 days, didn't eat, barely drank. I didn't even bury her properly. And when the police came, I didn't run, didn't hide. They had a warrant, thin as paper. They found the crawl space. They found the basement wall. They found the garden. 17 girls, some more intact than others, some with little things beside them. Bracelets, jaw rings, barrettes, ribbons. Things I thought were tokens. Things that became evidence. They questioned me for 14 hours. I didn't speak, didn't flinch. Not because I was strong, but because I had nothing left. My world had collapsed already. The moment Lily died, everything else was just the echo. So I sat there, hands cuffed, blood drying under my nails, and waited for the silence. It didn't come. What came was noise. The press, the parents, the outrage. People outside the courtroom with signs, death to the monster, justice for the 17. My lawyer said I'd never get a fair trial. I told him I didn't want one. What would be the point?
I pled guilty to every count. Murder, kidnapping, desecration of remains. They gave me 347 years. Stillwater Correctional Facility, no parole, no appeals, just time. And yet here I am, still talking, still trying to explain what doesn't deserve to be explained. Why? Because something inside me, maybe the same thing that kept their names in my head, still wants to be understood. Not forgiven, not excused, just understood. People think prison changes you, that time behind bars wears you down, scrapes off the edges until there's nothing left but regret. But the truth is, it doesn't change you. It just stops emotion. What you are stays inside. It waits. Every night, when the lights go out, I lie on my back and stare at the ceiling. There's a crack up there, runs diagonally across the plaster, like a jagged scar. I trace it with my eyes, over and over. Sometimes I imagine it's a map, that if I follow it enough times, I'll figure out where I broke. I don't dream of the girls anymore. That ended about a year ago. Now, I dream of Lily. But not the Lily I remember. Not the bright, loud, rule-breaking Lily who painted the dog blue and ate spaghetti with her hands. No. I dream of a Lily who's older, taller than I ever saw her. She's always standing at the edge of a field, facing away from me. Her hair moves moves in the wind, and she's holding something. A balloon maybe, or a drawing, and I can never reach her. No matter how fast I run, she's always just out of reach. That's what eternity is. Not fire, not chains. Distance. Permanent, aching distance from the one thing that kept you tethered. I've had time to think about the word evil. I used to believe it was a sharp thing, monstrous and jagged and loud. But now I know better. Evil is quiet. It speaks in reasonable tones. It wears clean clothes. It remembers birthdays. Evil waits. You asked me before we started if I had anything to say for the families. I don't.
I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm not asking for understanding. This isn't for the world. It's not for you. It's not even for them. This is for the part of me that still hears her voice, that still thinks about the chipped bowl and the pink cup and the squeak of her chair on the tile. This is for the silence that came after, and the man who filled it with ghosts. You can stop recording now. You're still here. I didn't think you would be. Most people, they step away before the end, like turning off a movie when the credits roll, like it doesn't matter how it finishes, just that it stops. But you stayed. So I'll give you this. I know what I am. That sentence. 347 years. It doesn't frighten me. It's not meant to. You see, the punishment isn't time. It's memory. It's waking up every morning and remembering what you did, who you are. That's the cell I never leave. Not the 4 concrete walls, not the cot, not the guards. It's the echo, the part of my mind that replays each voice, each name, each final breath, like a symphony no one else hears. And still, there's something worse. I keep waiting to feel nothing, to go numb. That would be easier, wouldn't it? But I don't. I remember their faces. Some days it's all I see. I blink and they're there, not accusing, not screaming, just watching. Quiet, like Lily used to. Before the hit and run, before the blood on Elm Street, before I started trying to rebuild her out of other people's daughters. Do you know what I hate most? The moment after it was over. Every time. The silence after their last breath. It wasn't peace. It was failure. Because no matter how many times I tried, none of them brought her back. None of them became her.
None of them stayed. People will say I'm evil. That's fine. Some will call me
a monster. You can write what you want. Record it, archive it, package it. But just know this. I was once a man who loved his daughter. And everything else, everything that followed, it came from that. I don't expect redemption. I don't even believe in it. But I do believe in honesty. And this is all I have left. So if you're going to keep the tape, keep all of it. Not just the horrors. Keep the why, even if it doesn't make sense. Because truth isn't about comfort. It's about the cold facts we try not to look at when the lights go out. And in here, the lights always go out. You can stop now. I'm done talking. Leave and share this with the world, Mr. Maddox.
That was Harvey Vale. Thank you for sharing this openly, Harvey. 17 victims. What you just heard wasn't remorse. It was control, carefully maintained until the final word. At Red Case Files, we don't share these recordings to glorify the killers. We share them to understand them, and to remind you that monsters rarely look like monsters until it's too late. If this story resonated, disturbed you, or made you think, we ask only this: subscribe to the channel. Share this confession with others who study the darkest minds. Now I gotta get going. It's a long drive to Portland. The next inmate is waiting to be interviewed. We'll see you then.